Welcome back to the Relationship Whisperer Show with Miss Dragonfly, where we discuss all things relationships with the aim to make marriage great again. Now today we have a very big show. For those new to the show, we talk about relationships and relationship news, what's being trending on the news at the moment regarding relationships, but also look at celebrities as well and what's happening with them. Now, as part of relationship advice, I also am an astrologer, so I do astrology readings as well, but specialize in relationship compatibility, as this is a relationship show and I am a relationship expert. So that is what will make up the show: general relationship advice, relationship news, and some celebrity astrology readings as well. And I generally look at celebrities that are in the news or people piquing people's interest, people are interested about. And so today I will be looking at the Trumps. Yes, he has been in the news quite a bit, and a lot of people are interested in what he's doing. Whether or not you love him or hate him, everyone seems to be interested in Donald Trump and what he's doing and what he's up to. And what he's up to at the moment is trying to get the Republican nomination to be the presidential candidate, to go up against all the other candidates and be placed on the ballot. So a lot of things happening around that at the moment, and that's why he's been in the news. And as most people would know, this year, 2024, is an election year in the US, the presidential election year. And people may know or not know that what usually happens is that each party selects their own candidate to run for president. And as part of that, they have these nominations in each state. They have their own election, so to speak, amongst Republicans. And you have all these candidates that have put their hand up saying, yep, I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I'm throwing my name in the ring. And we see who's going to be elected. And the winner, I guess, as I understand it, the winner of the most states then gets to be the presidential candidate for the party. And then we'll go up against it's normally the Republican versus Democrats. I know it should be a democracy, but for some reason, one way or another, we've only ended up with two parties. I guess it's like that in a lot of Anglophone countries. And in the US, you have Democrats versus Republicans. Every now and again, you might have one running as an independent, putting their hand up, but they almost never win. Actually, I haven't remembered any independent presidential candidate in the US that has won the election and become president. Even though the law there states that anyone can put their hand up, any US-born citizen is eligible to become president. But I guess with a lot of things in practice, it doesn't always happen that way. Well, either because of one thing or another, special interest groups. And of course, you have to have a lot of money or be a certain popularity states to be able to get enough donations to run your presidential campaign. Basically, it's advertising. As you know, you want to sell a product, you want to sell anything, you've got to have money to advertise. And I guess, the more money someone has, the more they're able to spend on advertising. And so the greater chance of them being able to sell the product. Okay? And so, because more people would know about it. It's just like a presidential candidate or anyone running for office. The more finance you have behind you, the more money you have behind you, the more advertising you can put out and pay for those advertising campaigns to make people aware of you, and secondly, also be able to persuade people. If you keep hammering the message, you keep constantly being bombarded with it. And I guess eventually it goes through. But then that's not too dissimilar from others. Like you see in Australia, it's either Labor or Liberal. That's the two main parties that's ever going to form government, so to speak, because they're the most too well known. We have a couple other minor parties. Yeah, some more well known than the others. Like you'd have the Greens Party in Australia being very left wing. And you have Pauline Hanson's One Nation, which is more of a conservative. Actually, I think they're about the only conservative party left because a lot of them have fallen by the wayside. But then you have more obscure ones like the Shooters, Fishers, and Farmers and Fishers Party, something like that. That sort of thing. But they would almost never win it because they don't have the profile, they don't have the numbers, and so they cannot form government. And as it is, I mean, you think it's a democracy. It should be a democracy, but in practice, we're given very little choice, so to speak. And that's something that's not good, flies in the face of democracy. And democracy, people remember what it's about. It's all about we the people have the say in who governs us. We determine, we give them the power, delegate the power to them to make decisions on our behalf. And that's why we elect the candidate we think that more aligns with what we like and what we want to represent us. And so they should be representing us. But if you're not given much choice, that's not really much of a democracy. And so in case people are wondering, yes, I do commentary on social issues as well as relationships as well, but predominantly a relationship channel. I talk about relationships, but I'm also an astrologer, and so I do astrology readings as well. And astrology ties in very well with relationships, and I've spoken to it in my past shows because you need to match, you need to be compatible. And astrology is one powerful tool that will cut through everything and would reveal whether or not you're compatible. But even more than get along as you are, it looks at all the other things as well. And I'll go deeper into that later in the show. So we'll go to some music and we'll be right back with more. Now, Donald Trump. You know, for a long time, people kind of like, he was funny. People laughed at him. And, you know, he was always one of, quite flamboyant man. I mean, before he was, he made a couple of cameos in movies, and he had his own show called The Apprentice. And as I understand, that program did very well. It went on for quite a few seasons. And because of that, he got his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in TV, so to speak. And I think, he went in he visited a wrestling match as well and was knocking someone off, and so to speak. I think he had a cameo in Home Alone as well, that movie. And for a long time, people were, laugh at him or saying, he's funny, and no one really took him seriously. But he was always a character. And people laughed at him and kind of made fun of him because of that, because he was just funny. However, something strange happened. So in, I think, 2016, he was contemplating running for president. And now as soon as he put his hand up, he registered for the Republican Party with the aim to become president, to run for president. Then all of a sudden, I saw the media flipped. They went from just laughing at him, making fun of him, to outright hatred. And all I could see on this mainstream news being bombarded with all these negative things about Donald Trump, things that you never heard of before. Things like he's racist, he's sexist, and all these types of things. And it was absolutely amazing. I remember watching it and saying, what? What's it done now? Then I remember back and think, no one actually said it was bad or anything before. People just laughed at him. But all of a sudden, as soon as he ran for president, then all this hatred came out. And virtually every story in the mainstream news was involving Donald Trump was a negative piece. And I'm thinking, like, you would think that he was a mass murderer from all this hatred that gets thrown around about him. And I honestly couldn't figure it out why. And then all these people suddenly hating him as well. I guess it's what people hear. People hear what they're told about someone, and so that's what they follow, and eventually it goes in, and then that becomes their belief system. And for me, I'm thinking, hang on, why didn't you have a problem before? Why all of a sudden? And to me, it just seemed rather suspicious. That alone was enough to tell me something was kind of not right there. Okay, because I like to take a step back and look at things critically. And so it just did not match up for me. Yeah, and it's amazing. After he actually won the election against Hillary Clinton back then in 2016, she couldn't even that night get up to make I wouldn't say acceptance speech. I would say lost speech. She actually had one of her people come up and say a few words on stage and then Hillary would come back later. And apparently I heard that she was just in such a mess and drunk in such a mess she couldn't even bring herself to go up on stage. So that's what he did. Conceding a loss. Yeah, that's a term. And normally the night when a candidate loses, they give a speech conceding their loss and, congratulate the other party. And that's what people usually do. And and that night, I remember at 3:00 in the morning in the US, he was there and they say like his 12-year-old son there was half asleep. It's 3:00 in the morning. It was there. He had to attend the most important day of his father's life there, and with the big acceptance speech, victory speech there. And it was amazing. Then after that, the very next day, normally newspapers say, look, we have a new president, or such and such wins the election. But then the news the very next day on the paper was Trump goes in as the first president with the most major debt or charges or something against him. I think, this does not look right. And then it was every obstacle made to not to have him inaugurated, and then there was all this security furor about him inaugurated, and people in the streets crying because Hillary lost and Trump was thinking, this is just so surreal. Like this is what reminds me of North Korea, when I think Kim Il-sung or something, the previous president, died, and you had all this mass grief and people crying on the streets, and in the West people were looking at that and scratching their heads and thinking, this is surreal, seeing why is this happening? But then it happened in the West. Thinking, what's wrong with these people? It's an election. You're hopeful, your candidate lost, get over it, move on. And normally it should be, look, we've lost the election. Okay, but for unity, let's support the incumbent to win and make our country great and move forwards and so speak. And then with none of that, and the whole situation was just so weird to me. Well, and nothing before, and all of a sudden, all this and things that are unprecedented. That's happened. I mean, they've had supposedly staff saying, his protection staff as well, saying, they wouldn't take a bullet for him, even though that was their job. And so was fired, rightly so. If you refuse to do your job, then you shouldn't have it. Plain and simple. No matter who it is that you're there supposed to protect, you do your job. Otherwise, do not do it. And then you cannot put blame on being fired. You can't argue about being fired. You won't do your job. And, when he was going overseas, I remember one time in the he went to the UK, and the Lord Mayor in the city of London put out a balloon, blow up balloon in the sky with Trump in, I think, diapers or something. I mean, This is incredible. You have a head of a sovereign nation visiting, and this is what you do. It doesn't matter who it is. There's decorum, and there's things that you need to follow. I mean, can you imagine doing it any leader in the world? You may not agree with him or that, but you do follow decorum and show formality and stick to tradition and your hospitality in when you're welcoming and hosting a guest, especially when that is the head of state of another country, a sovereign country that you've invited, and that is there as a visitor. Forget about how bad it is, or you think he is, or whatever. What happened to good manners, so to speak? You invited someone has been invited into your home. Let's say your parents did, and you happen to not like that person. You don't go and make fun of a person in front of that person while your parents are hosting that guest. If you don't like it, you make yourself scarce, leave the house or go up to your room and so forth until the guest is gone, which is what Meghan Markle did back then when Donald Trump Trump visited, and she was still a part of the royal family back then. She was there, and supposedly she made herself scarce too. There was a reason why she could not meet him, her and Harry as well. She, as previously, has said he was, I think was on a show, Saturday Night Live or something, and she said he was disgusting and so forth. And then when he went, look, she could have been the bigger person. Put that aside. You do your duties and you follow the protocol. There's such a thing called protocol. And still welcome and put on a smile, even if it's going to be a fake smile. In her case, you do that and be the bigger person instead of being an immature brat, which she showed back then, and I guess she's still showing now with what she's doing. So it comes as no surprise. I mean, look, if you can do it with some person, say, oh, it's just him, it's just Donald Trump. It really shows you up. You know, it shows what type of person you are. I mean, look at the Queen back then. It ended up being only her. She was the one that was hosting him back then. And whatever her personal feelings are about him, she put them aside and fulfilled her duties and protocols as the head of a sovereign nation, welcoming and hosting the head of another sovereign nation, and one that is an ally as well. Not someone you're in war with or have no alliances with. This is two countries that have strong alliances going back many years. And she did her duty. And I remember there was on Facebook or somewhere in a shot, Donald Trump kept the Queen waiting. How horrible that was. Well, I remember back during that time, the truth was, he was actually on time. She was 15 minutes early. So it looked like he had kept her waiting when the truth was he didn't. She was just early. So it looked like he kept her waiting. And that was the story, the narrative that was spun. And so many people bought into that and believed it. So it goes to show you how easily people can be manipulated, into a narrative. And like I say, with the mainstream media, unfortunately, you can't believe everything that's been put out nowadays because it's all full of narrative, because there's no longer investigative journalism. Is the journalists, like I said in my previous show, has just parroting the official line. Okay, what governments put out, what official organizations put out, journalists just put the same thing out with no fact-checking or investigating whether or not that is true and what the truth really is. Like I say, it seems like investigative journalism is now dead. That is so unfortunate, because they're no longer doing the job that they historically did and what the public expects them to do. Give us the truth. And then it's up to the public to decide. Before, that was what it is. You're given facts, this, and this, and then it's up to the public to decide if they believed in that and what they think of that. And that's why you had so many different opinions. But now any news that's brought out, it's all spun with a narrative. And they're all presenting their view on and so their narrative to influence their audience and what they want their audience to think. And with that, it also shows up how easily manipulated people can be. People are very open and very easily swayed and persuade. People, I guess, now are rather lazy. They don't want to fact check themselves. And now with so much censorship, I guess it is hard for people to fact check because there's so many blockers, and you really have to know where to look to find the truth, the truth, or even the absolute facts without things being spun. So there it is. And there's also been not only Donald Trump that's been the subject of being mud flown his way, but then his entire family as well, any little thing. And even with his kids and his wife, and so to speak. I remember Michelle Obama was invited to be placed on American Vogue on the cover, and she was just glorified, and she basically could do no wrong. Whereas Melania, being a former model, you'd think that she'll be invited to be on Vogue, but out of all the first ladies, she wasn't. But she was actually, you'd think that someone that should be on there. Beautiful woman, former model, now first lady, and a migrant herself. So what more could, but they said no. So it really begs the question. And as I was saying, on one hand, the media tries to troll through and find every little thing that they can jump on about Trump and his family, but leave the Obamas well alone, even though photos have surfaced of his daughters smoking bombs. I think it was Malia or Sasha. I think it was Malia smoking a bong, which is marijuana. And the media just buried the story. No reporting, nothing. Okay, but can you imagine if any of Trump's kids was caught doing that? The outcry, and they don't smoke, they don't drink either, which is amazing. And I guess it comes from their father. Donald Trump does not drink. And I think it came from the fact that I think his older brother was an alcoholic and basically died from alcoholism. And so seeing that, he swore off the booze, and he doesn't drink. So good on him for that, and to sticking to his principles. Yeah, I was saying a businessman, big businessman, but not drink. That is a very rare thing, because in business circles, when you're socializing and doing your social connections and networking, it's always champagne or wine. That's the thing. That's the go. And for him to be strong enough to refuse that and turn it down, that says a lot about him. And I would give him marks for that, for being able to do that. And so there's also been a lot of speculation regarding Donald Trump and Melania's marriage, because she is his third wife now. He's been through a few, and we all heard about what happened with him and Ivana. He had an affair with Marla Maples, which is why he got divorced from Ivana, who sadly is deceased now. She died, I think, a few years ago now. So, lots of speculation with him and Melania, seeing what type of marriage they have at the moment. So what I'll do is I'm going to be looking at their charts and seeing how compatible they really are. So we'll go to some music and we'll be right back. Now, Donald Trump and Melania Canas, his wife. There's been quite a bit of speculation over their marriage because, as you know, Melania is Donald's third wife. And apparently he, after divorcing Marla Maples, he said he swore he'll never get married again. However, he did marry Melania, as I said, he said because she was exceptional. Though, as a businessman, he did make sure to sign a prenup agreement with her as well. Okay, business hat on. Now, been a lot of speculation because she is a lot younger than he is. They have one child together. The only child together is Baron, who is, oh my goodness, I saw the latest photo of him, but he's still a teenager. And he towers over his father by like one head above his father. And his father, as Donald, is like 6'2" or 6'3", something like that already. He's a tall man himself. And Melania being a model, of course, she's tall, but Baron is the tallest in the entire family. They're saying, wow. Okay, back to the Trumps. Now, looking at her chart, Melania, it was born, her date of birth that we're able to obtain. It's all public date of birth, publicly available date of birth is the 26th of April, 1970. So she is, on her year, she is a yang metal dog. On her month, for April, it is yang metal dragon. Her day pillar, the 26th, is yang fire rat. Well, there's a clash there. Rat is pure water and fire, and she's got fire on top of pure water. Bit of a clash there. So I think there's always going to be some difficulties with her and her spouse. And her own spouse now has always been Donald. We do not have her time of birth, unfortunately, so we do not know what her owl pillar is going to be. So we'll work based on 3 pillars. Now, most of the time, it can work. You can still do a reading based on 3 pillars if you don't know your time. The reading would still be the same, but sometimes the hour, if you know the time of birth, you generate the hour from it, and the hour can change the chart, the nature of the chart, and can change the reading. But this is all we have to go on, so I have to work with what we have. And that is 3 pillars out of 4. Now, Donald, on the other hand, the birth details, public birth details we have of him is he's born in 1946 in June the 14th at 9:59 a.m. So his year pillar would be yang fire dog. The month pillar would be yang wood horse. The day pillar is yin earth goat. And the hour pillar, we have the time, so we get an hour pillar, able to know what the hour pillar is. It's yin earth snake again. So looking at his chart, the snake in his time, the snake is mostly fire, so it will support the earth. It's a stronger earth. That's earth on top because earth is an output of fire. Now, his chart, he's actually a resource, what we call a resource chart, because he has a 3 seasonal combination in fire. So, in the seasonal combination in the sequence, it would be snake, horse, then goat. And you need all 3 of them to form fire. All 3 of them is basically summer, and summer is fire. That's why we call it a seasonal combination. And you must have all 3 of them for the fire combination. So he's got that. And so what we can say, he is yin earth, and he's having fire is predominant in his chart. He's a resource chart. So things support him. He needs things to support him for his success. Now, another thing with his chart, this is another feature of charts, is he's got what we call partial empress chart. And for an empress chart, you need all 4 earth signs. And that is goat, dog, dragon, and ox. And you need all 4 of them, and one of them has to be in the spouse pillar. And Donald has that. He has 2 out of 3 there. He's got the goat on his day, and he's got the dog on his year. So 2 out of 3. Melania, she has a dog on her year. And there you go. They got the same sign on the year. They're both dogs. And on the month, she's got the dragon on the month. So she's got 2. Donald's got 2. They're missing the ox. So with the ox, then it becomes Donald's Empress chart. The Empress chart will go to Donald, not Melania. And why? It's because you need one of the earths on your spouse palace, in your day pillar, to be the Empress chart. And Melania doesn't have it, so it's got to be Donald. Now, looking at it, where can they get the ox? Because if they've got the ox as well, then you've got that Empress chart. And so Donald would love her. And that's their connection together. So it could be Melania has the ox in her hour pillar, which we don't know what her hour, what time of birth she's born. It's speculation. And so what I also did was check on the luck cycle. So having a look at Donald and Melania's luck cycle. Now, Melania, her luck cycle, one of the luck cycles started in 1997, which was yin, fire, ox. Now, luck cycles, again, last for 10 years. Okay, the first 5 years belongs to the stem, which is the element. In this case, it's yin, fire. And the second half of the 10 years, the 5 years, later 5 years, it belongs to the zodiac sign, which we call the branch. And for Melania, it's the ox during that time. Now, having a look, when did they meet, Melania and Donald? They met in 1998. And at that time, she was in the yin fire part of her luck cycle. Because it started in 1997. That's when she entered it. And she met Donald in 1998. Now, again, a reminder, Donald, what did I say? A lucky element, because he's a resource chart, the lucky element for him is fire. So she was able to bring more fire with her to him. So that's why I guess started the attraction. Okay, it's understandable. And when did they marry? They married in 2005. So for 1997, you add 5 years to that. That'd be 2002. So Melania entered the ox luck cycle in 2002, and Donald married her in 2005. He's saying, yep, he would have loved her even more. She gave him the Empress chart, and during that time, and so he was able to do even big. I'm not sure when he started doing the Apprentice. I think it was around then. So she enabled him to be even stronger. And so he went from just a plain businessman in real estate to being a TV star. And it was a successful show as well. So he got a lot of recognition from that. I don't think he made that much money from it because it's on TV versus his real estate business. Okay? So that easily explains why he was attracted to her, and he married her, even though he said he wouldn't marry again. But I remember at the time he said because she was exceptional. And it's clear, you have a look at these two people. He's a lot older. She's a lot than she is. And while she had some success doing modeling, she was nowhere near as wealthy as he is. So he would have had to be the one to pick her. So it is a power imbalance, but that is the way it is. I mean, look, being any wealthy man would have his pick of women. She's a model, but then there would be heaps of other models that would want to hook up with him just because he was wealthy, but he chose her. And it's clear when their life or his status and his standing in society relies on him. Without him, she Melania Canas instead of Melania Trump. And Melania Canas, former model, now older, and that's it. But with him, she had the standing in society, being a business tycoon's wife, and later, eventually, first lady. I think she might have been just the second first lady in all of US history to not have been born in America. I think it might have been more than 100 years ago. Some first lady was born in England. And then now she's outside the Anglosphere. She was born in Slovakia or Slovenia? Slovenia, I should say, East European. Gee, he does have a penchant for East European women. It was Ivana was a woman from what was then Czechoslovakia, they say. And now you got another East European woman. It's from Slovenia. So big difference in the background's pretty obvious why she wanted to marry him, but now I can see why he wanted to marry her. Okay. So that is their relationship, and it mostly depends on him. And that is the relationship. So her chart, though, she is a follow power. She is yang fire. And so the dragon year, she follows power. So water would be power for her. And the dragon year is actually good for her because of that. Because dragon and rat combine to make even more water. She's already got a dragon there on her month. And now we've got a second dragon. About a bit of an issue with the spouse then, because then you've got two dragons competing with the spouse. So it's either Donald has his eyes elsewhere as well. There's someone else, like in the case of Kate Middleton, Princess Kate and Prince William has had a similar sort of thing this year with a dragon. Or she has someone else, or either she's competing with someone else for her spouse, or there's someone else for her. So either way, not that good a year for them in terms of relationship wise, I've seen. And at the moment now, she's gone into the pig luck cycle, which is mostly water. Now, with the pig, it's not that good for her. Now, in the present luck cycle of the pig, it's not that good for her. But the thing is, we don't know what her hour pillar is. If it's ox again, then she'll have a combination, and then that'll be great for her. Okay, but also, I guess, if she has a combination on her ox pillar, but also if she has ox on her hour pillar, then it would give Donald all four Earths. And so he'll permanently have the Empress chart as long as he's with her. So, but that's a big unknown at the moment, what her time of birth is. So this is how it can change the reading a bit depending on the hour of birth. It could be great if it was an ox, then we know it'll be good for her and him as well. And with that, then they should stay together. And so you see how Dallas astrology has a big role to play in relationships. And it's a very powerful tool to determine how compatible you are. And I guess how it's not just compatibility that's important. It's how that person will influence your life and what the person will bring to your life. I mean, that person may do nothing other than be with you, but just because they're with you, you get a boost. Like in the case with Donald. He got a boost from Melania because he was with her. Become a TV star, something that most billionaires don't do. And he gets fame that way as well. And also he managed to become president with her as well. And you know that astrology does develop according to the culture and the needs of the culture. And so you would be surprised that astrology does develop along with the culture that it sits with, the needs of the culture and what the culture is looking for. So Western culture would have developed in accordance with Western perspectives and what they deem as needs. So you'd find that a lot of relationship compatibility and readings and analysis using Western astrology is mostly based on how well they'll get along and what personality types they are like and that sort of thing. But nothing really deeper than that. Whereas in Taoist astrology, which is developed from ancient China, and back then, how well you initially get along, it comes secondary to all the other implications of what will that person do when they come into your family. Okay, would that person be lucky or unlucky? See, all the way back then, in the olden days, when a boy liked a girl, he'll make his wishes known to his parents. His parents would then make discreet inquiries with the local matchmaker to obtain the girl's date of birth and her name, and that will be placed on the family altar. And then they'll wait for 3 days to see if anything would happen. If nothing happened, that girl is okay. She's compatible with their family, and so then they progress with a match. However, if anything happens in that 3 days, anything unfortunate, say an argument happens in the family, or family might lose something, a loss of something gets damaged, or a bit of theft that happens, then then obviously she's bad for the family, so no go. And so they tell son, sweetheart, choose someone else. She's bad. And so the astrology developed according to that as well, and to check whether or not that person would be good for you. Because a person's chart, there may be issues. Because there may be issues with your chart that's holding you back from succeeding, and you probably need that remedied, or you just need a little bit more of something like Donald did. He needed the ox. And once you have that, then you would take off and become successful. Okay? And so that is the person you should marry. Or that other person's chart might do nothing for your chart, and then they have no effect. However, on the other hand, their chart might exacerbate the issue you currently have, make it even worse, or create an issue for your chart that wasn't there to begin with. And those are the people that you need to avoid. And so those were totally given the flick, because those things were very important, is success in life. And people might ask, well, where's the love? Where's the romance? Look, if someone comes in and you automatically become more successful, and because of that you're more in a good mood and you're happy, and of course things will be harmonious, and you tend to love your partner more, especially if once they've come into your life and you've become successful, you would value that person. Okay, and love, and that's the thing that will sustain love. It's over the long term. It's not the initial flush of feelings and saying personalities. And then that's how you find a lot of relationships start off very well, all this love and so forth, but then slowly die off. Why? Because there's nothing to keep supporting it, nothing to keep nurturing it. Because remember, a love relationship is not a natural relationship. It's a created relationship. A natural relationship is like, say, a mother and child. A mother would love her child no matter what, whether or not the child is ugly or pretty, or, might be brilliant, do well in school, or the school dunk, so to speak. The mother would still love her child. Does not have to earn the mother's love, so to speak. However, if it was someone, a stranger, someone totally different, you would need to earn that person's love. And just think, why do you love someone? Or why are you friends with someone? Because, you get along well and your friend actually provides something. I mean, friendships keep going because there's mutual benefits. Yeah? If it starts being one way, then no, After a while, he's saying, why am I doing this? What do I owe that person? Bad friend, out. It's just the same with a love relationship. Okay, you might initially love them, but if you end up having to do everything and everything's one-sided, the love would die. And you think, why do I need to keep doing this? What's in this for me? And we're all human. Then the bond steadily gets broken and then relationships fall apart. And that's that regarding Donald and Melania. So we'll go to some music and then we'll come back and have a look at Donald's personal chart in a bit more detail and look whether or not he can win this year, whether or not he can win the presidential election this year and become president again. He was 45th president and then he'll become 47th president again. Okay? So we'll be right back. Now, Donald Trump. Okay. We are all eagerly waiting to see what will happen with him, whether or not he will win this year's presidential election. Or will it be another case of 2020 again? So would it be 2016 or 2020 again? Now we'll have a look at Donald Trump's chart to see if there is any indication of whether or not he will win. Now, Trump's chart, as I previously mentioned, he's born in 1946 on the 14th of June at 9:59 a.m. That's the public date of birth we have available. And again, his year is Yang Fire Dog. Month pillar is Yang Wood Horse. Day pillar, Yin Earth Goat. Hour pillar, Yin Earth Snake. His day master is Yin Earth. And he has a 3 seasonal fire combination. Namely, that he has the snake, horse, and goat. And all 3 of them is the season of summer, which is also fire. And you must have all 3 of them in your chart for the combination to exist. All 3 of them. And he has that. And so his chart, the nature of his chart is a resource chart. Fire supports his earth, making him a resource. And that's how his chart operates. That's what makes him successful and is good for him is resources. However, there is another feature of his chart, as I previously mentioned, is that he has half an Emperor's chart. Half an Emperor's chart, and for those that don't know, an Emperor's chart requires you to have all 4 Earths. Okay? And the 4 Earths are goat, dog, dragon, and ox. You must have all 4 of them at the same time. And not only that, your day pillar or your house of spouse, your spouse palace must be one of the Earths. So one of the Earths must be there for an Empress chart to form. So he's got 2 of them on his own, on his personal chart, the goat and the dog. And the goat is in his spouse palace. So he's got that. So we'll look at Melania. She's got the dragon and the dog as well. So between the 2 of them, they've got 3 out of 4. So we'll flip and have a look at their luck cycle to see if there is an ox anywhere else. Okay. Now, in 2013, his luck cycle, which covers 10 years, the first part is yin metal. So the first 5 years was yin metal, and then the next 5 years was the ox. And so if you add to 2013, 5 years on 2013, that gives you 2018. And then from 2018 to 2023 was the ox. The luck cycle doesn't just start with a stem and then immediately transitions over to the ox. No, it doesn't. Well, there is a transitional period in between where the part that's exiting the element, the stem, so to speak, which is yin metal, gets weaker. And as you progress and as you get closer to the branch, which is his ox, it becomes stronger. Okay, so during the time in 2016, he had that election win. So he got the ox as well. During that time, you can say the power of the ox was coming, and so he won. But however, back then in 2016, now Donald Trump in 2016, he was in a monkey year. That was a monkey year, and it happened on November 8, 2016. Now, the monkey would combine with his snake a year, but also it would also give him quite a few in a row. It gave him 5 in a row. Now, one thing about being in a rows, the more you have in a row in terms of the zodiac animal, the branches, the better it is. So there, in order, he would have had the snake, the horse, the goat, and then the monkey. So that's 4 in a row as well. Okay. Now, the election happened on the 8th of November. No, look, and I think that was also the end of the dog month as well. So after dog, then it becomes pig during November. But, it doesn't, the lunar calendar doesn't correlate with the Gregorian calendar exactly. So there's a bit of crossover. So at the end of the dog month, that's when the election was held, and that's when he was elected. And the dog is actually good for him because it provides another combination. It's stronger fire. It combines with his horse as well. So pretty strong for him. And so that was what supported him. So he had 4 in a row plus even stronger fire in that year. And so he became president. But in 2020, that was the rat year, and that was when he lost the election. And with the rat clashes with his horse, so his combination has fallen apart. His seasonal combination for that year, and also he has a partial combination with the dog. The dog and the horse do combine, and they combine to produce fire. And that was knocked off as well. And so he had no fire in 2020. So basically he had no support in 2020. So that was gone. And so that's why he lost the election in 2020. Now, what about this year? Well, having another look at his chart, and wood is actually good for him because it fuels the fire. And this year is Yang Wood Dragon. Okay, Yang Wood, so that's why he's been getting a lot of support. That's why he's been winning the ballot in all these different states to become the presidential nominee at the moment. He's got a lot of support. Yeah, the wood really helps him. And the dragon does give him 4 in a row as well. Because then the sequence is dragon, snake, horse, and then goat. 4 in a row. So generally good for him. However, it does clash with the dog, and that is on the year. And so your year pillar involves the public. It's your public face, your interaction with the outside world. And so the clash with the dog means bad public perception. So, he's got on one hand, he's got a lot of support, but on the other hand, it's bad public perception. Namely, he's been these lawsuits and so forth, so to speak. But the lawsuits are really ridiculous, and even him being found guilty in a civil trial for fraud is absolutely ridiculous. I guess the headline people mostly read is Trump gets fined $350 million for fraud. Look, and most people don't dig deeper. But if you do, you'll find out the details of what the case is all about. It's basically about borrowing money. Look, it's kind of like, I want to borrow $400 million because my asset as collateral is worth so much. It's worth, say, $1 billion. And so then the bank makes an assessment and say, look, we don't think it's worth $1 billion. What your asset, we think it's only worth, say, 500 million, so to speak. So we're only going to lend you 300 million instead of 400 million. It happens all the time. I mean, most common people would approach a bank and say, look, I want to borrow this amount of money. I've got this much in assets, so to speak. My value is this. And then the bank would send a valuer to value what they think that value is. And if they disagree with what your application is, they say, no, we don't think your house is worth $1 million. We think it's only worth 800,000, so to speak. So we won't lend you the whole 400,000. We'll lend you, say, 350,000. And that happens all the time. And you know what? The bank that supposedly he defrauded actually testified on his behalf. The supposed victim testified on his behalf, but the judge still slapped him, caught him guilty of fraud and slapped him with $350 million fine. And for what? So that's why there's a lot of talk with businessmen now fleeing New York, because they can no longer trust the law, because that's a common business practice. And if you cannot do that, then they're out. I'm not staying here. That sort of thing. So this is the thing, what I'm saying about people being very easily manipulated, because people only read the headlines, and people go off the headlines, and also because the journalists want that perception out there that he's committed fraud. Whereas if you look at the circumstances, it wasn't fraud. Even the common person that goes for a house loan does it all the time. We all do it. What is going to happen in November? Okay, November, I think it will be a pig month, and that will clash with the snake. And then again, it will break apart his combination again. And the snake being there, look, what it says is his son will compete with his authority. So a bit of not so tensions in the family then at that time. Now in October, it would be a dog month, and that gives him support. But the election this year is not held during the dog month; it's held during the pig month. And so the pig would then compete with his authority. And having a look at the luck cycle he's in at the moment, he's in the Yang water luck cycle, which isn't good for his chart. So he's weaker. He needs the fire. He needs the fire to support himself. And a lot of people can understand clearly, easily understand that fire and water do clash. Okay, so not a good thing for him. So this year is a bit, he may win or he may not. It's very unclear. It's not as clear-cut as in 2016, so to speak. So for those ardent fans and supporters of him, if they want him to win, they really have to support him. And because on the flip side, those that really hate him would want to really push him down again. And especially for those that believe that 2016, the election was stolen because of various things with mail-in ballots and so forth, which I don't blame them, because supposedly ballots came in with 100% of votes for Biden. There was reportedly, and that's impossible. You cannot have one candidate getting 100% of the votes in one county. Look, even if you were to put Hitler on the ballot, someone's going to vote for him. So that's impossible. Mathematically, it's impossible. So I understand why his supporters would think that it was corrupted and there was fraud and the election was stolen, because apparently towards the end of the night, he looks like he was winning, and then all these ballots came in that were mail-in ballots, and then flipped it to Biden all of a sudden. So that's why, and maybe issues like that would happen again. So unfortunately, this year, it's not that clear. He might win, but probably not, if we're going off his charts at the moment and his support. So Youngwood is definitely good for him. At this time, he's getting a lot of support. It fuels his fire. But the second half of the year, not so much, because it also, clashes with the dog. And even though it gives him 4 in a year, but the month that the election is held is not good for his chart. I mean, the pig will clash with the snake and break it apart. So unfortunately for his fans and supporters, not clear cut, he probably won't win. And I guess on the other side, those that really hate him, they'll be cheering it on. It'll be great news to hear. Like I said, it's still a chance he could win, but its support is not that great on his chart. So that's a reading for Donald, and and I don't know if he doesn't win. Not sure who is going to win. I don't know if they're going to be still running by Joe Biden as the Democrat presidential candidate. He's currently president, but look, to everyone that's seen him giving speeches and so forth, it's clear the man's not all there. He makes speeches and talks that makes no sense, and he turns around and shakes the hand. He tries to shake someone's hand of someone that's not even there. It was pretty embarrassing. I saw that clip of him turning around to shake someone's hand, but there was no one there. And then one of his minders had to help him off stage. I see when he's walking, the minder tells him, okay, avoid here. This person's is such and such a name, and so forth. It's pretty embarrassing. So not sure who's really in power. If, of course, someone with not all their marbles there is certainly not going to be, or at least going to be taken advantage of. And so it's unclear who they're going to front off. There's been talk that they want to put Michelle Obama on the ballot. She's popular, and she's black, and she's a woman. So that gets the diversity vote. But really, look, in the day, Luna, are you going to hire someone just because of their race in the background, or their sexual orientation? That's what's being pushed. Okay, and once upon a time, that would have been seen as discrimination. You don't do that sort of thing. You hire someone based on merit. And that's what it should be if you want the job done properly, rather than just for social statements, so to speak, social signaling as that. Because I heard, it can be very scary. I mean, I heard Boeing recently has been hiring based on diversity, and hiring the most disabled people that they can that wouldn't otherwise get a job. And then that raises the issue of then safety. And I heard recently, I think a month ago or so, one of the Boeing aircraft from Boeing had the door come off midair. How scary is that? And the pilot got sucked out of the cockpit and he was hanging on for dear life, having, on the verge of being frozen to death eventually when they landed, but he managed to climb his way back in somehow and survived. Thankfully, the plane did not fall from the sky, but can you imagine being in a plane and knowing that the people that are working in the plane and maintaining the plane was not hired for their qualifications, but hired because they had a disability or had a certain sexual orientation or their race? Because the flip side, that puts doubt in people's mind. Imagine though, you go and that your pilot was hired because of diversity. Would you really want to be a passenger on that plane? Or even the perception, if you saw, say, a black pilot, then you're wondering, was he actually hired because he was a good pilot based on his skills, or just because he was black and they kind of just passed him? And unfortunately, even if he was hired based on his skills, there's that perception, and you put that suspicion in people's mind and doubt. Not a good look. All right, we'll go to some music and we'll be back with more. Now, I've come across a very interesting article And it's titled Lifelong KFC Fans $80,000 KFC themed wedding in Sydney CBD. And the article says, saying I do took on a whole new meaning for these newlyweds after they won an $80,000 package for a KFC inspired wedding. Imagine that. KFC. Getting married KFC style. Some people get married in a church, but these newlyweds were married in a church of their own kind. In one of the quirkiest weddings around, Tan Yun and Brian Tran had a KFC themed wedding after they won an $80,000 package with Mr. Tran's Colonel approved proposal. The KFC competition asked Aussie lovebirds to propose in a creative way using the brand's onion rings. And they had won the prize. With both the bride and groom KFC mega fans, Mr. Tran even had a dream to visit a franchise in every country around the world to try the international menus. When he realized KFC weddings were being offered again, he decided to throw his hat in the onion ring and enter the competition. Our KFC themed wedding was an absolute blast, and having KFC play a big role made it unforgettable, Mr. Tran said. Sharing the day with our closest friends and family made it extra special, and we're so grateful for the love and laughter everyone brought to our wedding. Our entrance as a married couple to the reception was marked by a dance with custom KFC buckets. A moment that truly set the tone for the entire night. It was hands down the most incredible day of our lives. The ceremony took place at the Sydney Opera House before moving to a KFC picnic on Bennelong Lawn, and then the reception at Cabra Vale Diggers. Oh my goodness. KFC paraphernalia in the wedding included a KFC themed bucket. KFC paraphernalia in the wedding included a KFC bucket themed wedding cake, KFC buckets filled with blooms, chicken suits aplenty, and personalised KFC buckets for guests. A grazing table also featured at the wedding, packed with the brand's iconic chicken. KFC marketing officer Tammy Cunningham said she knew KFC had played a special role in many couples' love stories. What could go better together than our fried chicken and a wedding, she said. We're delighted to see Tan and Brian get married and celebrate their love with their friends, family, and bucket loads of KFC fried chicken, and hope it's a day they will remember for the rest of their lives together. You know, it's one thing loving KFC, but to actually have your wedding themed around that is quite another. And being young, okay, you might love KFC, but having everything in the KFC wedding is quite another. Look, I don't know why they went into the competition. I guess, look, I really think it's to get a free wedding because it said an $80,000 wedding package with the KFC themed, because it's not so common for, especially amongst Asians. There's an expectation of what the wedding is going to be like. Like, it's almost a formula, and hardly anyone deviates from that. Certain dress, certain things on the menu, so to speak, and the ceremony has to be of a certain kind. It's kind of like they're very much into following the Jonesies because there's a worry about what people are going to think, what they're going to say. So that I was surprised that it was an Asian couple that had it. Well, firstly, went into it. But so that's why I think it's more likely they were looking at the free wedding, the $80,000 package, because okay, the cake might have looked KFC, the grazing table was KFC chicken, fair enough, but everything else, I guess it would have had to be normal banquet food, and the $80,000 would have gone a long way to paying for everything, because in this day and age, weddings are expensive. As soon as suppliers hear that's a wedding, all the prices go up. It's just like flowers. If it's flowers for say a birthday or something, it's this price. But as soon as if they hear wedding, it's now this price. And receptions, they do charge a lot of money when they hear if it's for a wedding rather than say someone's birthday or an anniversary. You know, it just gets jacked up, and that's part of the reason why it does get expensive. But also everything else gets expensive, especially the reception is the biggest cost. That's why I guess for a lot of Western weddings, it's always a small wedding because of how much it costs. I mean, the bride and groom can only afford so much. And then they ask the people to chip in, I guess. And so the alcohol, normally it's not provided free. It's by tab because of that reason. But normally in Asian weddings, you don't have that issue because instead of giving gifts, which usually turns out to be useless wedding gifts, people give money. Okay, and if they're going to give money, then the polite thing to do is cover your per head cost. So the guests actually end up paying for the reception. And so then it doesn't put as much of an onus, financial burden on the couple moving forwards. And then it doesn't become an issue as to how many people you invite, because everyone kind of ends up paying for themselves. As a wedding, you cover your per head costs. And unfortunately, at the moment, with the cost of living, everything's gone up. You can see you go to restaurants and the prices are so high, have gone so up, or those that have managed to keep their prices at a reasonable, steady increase have had to cut and find savings elsewhere. And that normally means cutting corners, especially with ingredients, or so to speak, or servings get smaller, or the menu gets changed for cheaper food, cheaper dishes while still maintaining the price. I've seen that. And if anyone's been out dining recently, you probably would have noticed, or you haven't noticed, then next time you go out and eat, have a closer look at the menu and you know what I mean. And so now it's jacked up to like about $200 a head. It's gone that expensive. So I don't blame the couple, but I was surprised that it was an Asian couple that did it. But I can understand why they did it that way. It's one thing to like McDonald's, but it's another thing to show your love at a wedding where in a community where everyone expects the same type of formula. So hats off to them for being brave enough, and I hope they did not get slack from their family. Though I don't think they did, because KFC wasn't the only thing that was served there. I noticed the article said it was a grazing table, but not the actual banquet food. So I think they got out of that part of it. And that's it for that article. And we'll go to some music and we'll be right back. Now, I hope everyone's enjoyed the show today. I've covered a very famous and controversial person in Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, he is what's a lot of people are talking about at the moment in the news. And the big question is whether or not he can win the presidential election this year. So at the moment, he's doing very well. And he's winning all the primaries and so forth in all the states to become the presidential candidate for the election this year. And looking at his record, looks like he is going to win it. I think they've quite a lot of other candidates have dropped out, like Vivek Ramaswamy, Ron DeSantis, and there was only Nikki Haley that kept hanging on, even though I think she only won one out of all of them, and because she was still persisted, and I think now she's just dropped out. And so the only one left is Donald Trump still left. So he's going to be the Republican presidential candidate. Well, it looks like, it's got to be him. So the big question is going to be who's going to be the Democrat nominee for president. Normally, it's the existing sitting president, but in this case, with Joe Biden, that's not a given. It looks like it could be someone else. And so the big question is, can Trump win this year? So I've gone in to have a look at his chart. And with his chart, I could see why he won in 2016. He had a lot of support back then with in his chart. And why he lost in 2020, where things went against him that time, because he had the rat that knocked about all his combinations that made his power. And this year, it is the Yang Wood Dragon. Now, this first part of the year, he's getting a lot of support at the moment because the first half of the year is dominated by the wood, and wood supports him. Wood supports his fire that supports him, fuels the fire, so to speak. So he's doing well this at the moment. He's getting a lot of support and so forth. He's winning and so forth. However, second half of the year, not as good for him. The dragon does clash with his dog. Affects public perception. And in elections, perceptions play a big role because people vote with perception. They look at the headlines. They don't go in and look at the whole story about what the story is really all about, what the cases and things are really all about, just looking at the headlines. And with a hostile mainstream media against him, that is going to be difficult because they're putting out all this. Though he's got a very strong, very zealous and strong fan base. So not sure if that's going to be enough to push him through. So not as clear cut for him this year with the dragon, because the dragon also, even though it does give him 4 in a row, it does clash with his dog. And his dog does combine with his horse to make a partial fire combination as well. Now, the election is on the 5th of November this year, and that is during a pig month. And with the pig, it clashes his combination as well. So he clashes with the snake, and that falls apart his combination. So, and then the dragon actually clashes with the dog and pulls apart the dog and the horse combination. So his support drops in November. So he might win, okay, but it looks like it probably won't. I think some stories might be put out to whether or not they're true, to prevent him from winning in terms of trying to change public perception. So from the looks of it, I think that's what might happen from looking at the chart. So unfortunately for his fans, they're going to have to really support him if they want him to win this year. And for those that hate him and against him, I don't think you don't have to do as much as in 2016 to prevent him from becoming president. So then the big question is, who's going to be president? And we also had a look at Melania and him as a couple, and I can see why, because Melania was good for him, and that's why they got married. But we don't know what our pillar is, because we don't know what her time of birth is. So whether or not they'll stay together, it's unsure because of that. So that's the thing, when you don't know someone's time of birth, it can make things difficult when you're trying to do a reading, and it could be wrong because because of the time birth, it can change the reading. Sometimes, a lot of times it doesn't, but sometimes it does change the reading. So that's hand in hand. So please, if you do, knowing your time of birth is also very important. And if you'd like to comment on the show, you can head off to my Facebook page under Miss Dragonfly. Find me there, and you can comment under the post I've done for today's show. And any questions as well, you can ask me on the post the questions up there. And if there is anything you'd like me to cover, then feel free to also make those suggestions there. And if I can cover it, then I will. So that's it for the show today. I hope you've all enjoyed it. And I'll see you again same time next week. And until then, it's bye for now.